Good morning. I'm sitting outside the Suncor Energy Center for the Performing Arts, where I've just dropped off my youngest daughter for her dance class, and thought I would update my video log. Yesterday was a good day. Evelyn was home from ECDP because they were doing a virtual open house in her program to try and attract new participants for next year's program, and I really like her school. She and Amelia both have benefited from a tremendous program in the Fort McMurray Public School District, and I was a little worried this year actually because their principal retired last year and a new principal came in. It was like a wholesale change of administration, but the Fort McMurray Public School District must do a very good job of their succession planning, because the fundamentals of what the school is haven't really changed, and the girls are benefiting from that stability in their lives of going to the same programs, seeing the same people, and things that I took for granted when I was growing up. I grew up in Drumheller, and I lived in the same place from the time I was 5 to the time I was 18, and then came back to it for a while before I moved out again. I had that home base my whole life, and my mom and my brother still live in the Drumheller area, so I still have that place to go home to, even though this is my home now. Fort McMurray is my home now. I've been here for continuously now for over 20 years, and seeing as I first moved up here in 1995, I feel like I've been part of the community for 26 years. I had a really good conversation night before last with an old college friend of mine, who reached out after seeing one of these video logs and wanted to share her experiences with me. I've had lots of people that I honestly didn't expect to hear from, people that I played in concert and marching bands with back in the early 1990s, and I haven't seen or heard from them in 30 years. And some of them I've kept contact with, and there's lots of support from people, and I just want to let you know, I appreciate everyone's messages of positivity and support, but that's not why I'm doing this. I really want this conversation to become normal. I want people to recognize within them the things that are challenging to their mental stability and be able to talk about it. I went out last night for the first time the last time Natasha and I were out was our anniversary, which was in February last month. And then I haven't seen this particular friend since last October, when we went for a few pints and some good conversation with some other friends, and it was so wonderful to have even that tiny little bit of normal for a couple of hours and just talk. And I was surprised when our conversation went, no, I shouldn't say surprised, I was gratified when our conversation went from what we normally talk about to our mental health. This particular friend isn't on social media at all, and really issues technology. He's not a Luddite, but he just doesn't really buy into all the social media and the technical things. I mean, he had a flip phone until he could no longer use a flip phone, but so he's not aware of this campaign, of this March Mullets campaign, or of my efforts to try and be candid in my own journeys through my mental health. And so it was really gratifying to see somebody totally unrelated open up about their own mental health challenges. And I'm not sure that everybody characterizes it as a mental health challenge. One of the reasons why this is such a journey for me is that when I was growing up in the Drumheller area in the 1970s and 1980s, mental health wasn't something that you talked about. I don't think anybody ever vocalized that. You know, one of the major industries, I think the two major industries in Drumheller in that time, you know, the last coal mine closed in 1973, so at that point the two major industries became agriculture and the local penitentiary. And with that many penitentiary guards there, mental health was a prevalent issue. But nobody talked about it. It just wasn't part of our vernacular. It wasn't part of our vocabulary. We didn't have the tools or the resources to know how to deal with it. I told this story to another friend of mine 2 or 3 days ago, where I grew up always feeling loved. But I don't remember my dad telling me that he loved me until I was in my 20s. It was, we were sitting around the table at my mom and dad's acreage, which was where we had lived for 20 years, and I was remarking to a friend of my dad's that I thought it was really great that mom and dad made a point of telling their granddaughters every time they saw them that they loved them. It was the beginning and the end of every conversation. And I said this exact same thing, that I remember growing up feeling loved. And my mom told me she loved me, and I knew that my dad loved me, but he never, I don't recall him ever saying it until that conversation around the table. And after that, he made a point of always starting and ending every conversation with, "I love you." And I still make that point now. I think that recognizing your love and respect for the people around you is a big part of helping positively impact the mental health of others. I mean, I believe there is a time to hold back what you're feeling, and that time is usually when that feeling is negative, when you're angry, when you're sad. Those are things to review to figure out whether what you're putting back, what you're reflecting back to that other person is valid. Not valid. Valid is not the right term, but is accurate. You know, we sometimes get knee-jerk reactions. I know I do, where I will be frustrated about something else in my life, but I'll get snappy with the people who are talking to me because I'm frustrated about that other thing. It's not them. It's not this moment. It's that other thing still impacting me and taking space in my brain, and me not dealing with it. But the place where it's never time to hold back is when you want to tell somebody how much they mean to you, how much you love them, how much you care about them, how important they are in your life. And if you've taken the time to watch this portion of my video log, I want you to know that I love you. I think you're an important person, otherwise you wouldn't be on my friends list. Otherwise you wouldn't be, you know, whether it's peripheral, you know, somebody that I met in the music industry and our contact was brief and fleeting, but I believe that you're a good person and a good individual and somebody that had a positive impact in that very tiny moment in my life. I think that's important, and I want to recognize it. Or whether you're somebody that, there are people on my list here who quite literally I have known my whole life. People who, you know, before we moved up to the acreage when we lived in Midland, that I knew you then. So I've known you for 42 years plus. Whatever part of that spectrum you're on, you're important to me, and you have value. This conversation that I had a couple nights ago with an old college friend, she brought up that she had been doing some research about an American who had gone to the Asian continent to study Buddhism. And in Nepal, there is no word in the Nepalese language for self-loathing. And I think that's beautiful. I think that's awesome. That no matter where you are on your journey, whether you are fully physically abled and mentally abled to be able to do whatever you want to do, or whether there's something impacting your life, whether it be a physical impediment or a mental roadblock, you have value. You have value as a part of the system, and you have value as an individual. And I think that that's a beautiful thing. And so I hope today that you take some time to be gentle with yourself and gentle with the world around you, to recognize your value, and that you ask me about my mullet, donate to the March Mullets for a mental health campaign, and just keep on abiding with the universe. Thanks for your patience. This is going to be a long and rambling journey, I'm sure. And I love you all. Happy Saturday.